Hey, Honest community. Before we dive into this episode, we've got a quick free favor to ask. If you enjoyed the Honest Property podcast, please hit like, follow, and subscribe wherever you're listening from. It helps us grow, reach more people, and bring on guests that you want to hear from. Thanks for being a part of this. We appreciate you more than you know.
Hello, and welcome to the Honest Property podcast with your hosts, Becky and Ruth. And we like to talk about things all about building aligned wealth. And today we're going to be talking about Nepo babies. Is it a privilege? Talking about corruption, especially with what's happening in the Philippines currently with the government. And is it just a bubble of wealth? So what's happening right now in the Philippines is not great. If anyone knows what's happening in the news, Nepo babies of government officials are basically taking the hit of the government let's explain this. The government officials have been taking money from the taxpayers of Philippine citizens that was meant to go towards the flood to prevent flooding. To prevent flooding by building these structures so that would stop that happening. But instead, it's been a scandal that's been released into the media where the money, how much was it, money? Like 1
Billions.
billions of peso, which equates
No,
to
dollars. Billions of dollars. I'm pretty sure it's
billions of
billions of dollars. Yeah.
I thought it was like, yeah, that should have gone towards repairing these flood problems, but instead the government officials have been putting it in their pockets, and it stirred everyone up because the Nepo babies of these government officials are flaunting luxuries like fancy, expensive cars, watches, designer handbags, and whilst people are suffering the consequences of those actions.
Yeah, apparently it's like, I've just had a quick look and it was $9.5 billion scandal. It's going on the lavish lifestyles of the contractors and politicians' children instead of actually saving the country that is deep in water at the moment, especially with the recent typhoon that's hit. So whilst the country is suffering, these Nepo babies, I think it's just like it's hard to deny the fact that the money that was meant to go towards better infrastructure, making sure the country was safe and the countrymen were safe with their tax money, social media is just these children of the politicians and contractors are obviously the ones receiving the benefits, and that's where this whole conversation we've decided to talk about today has been inspired.
Oh, sorry, yeah. So, Nepo babies, some people see them as really lucky, and other people see them as really entitled. So, what is the real truth? What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think Nepo babies, like, are they entitled or are they just lucky to be born into wealth?
I think the thing is, when you are building wealth, you want the best for your children, don't you? You want them to live a life with you don't really want them to suffer or have hardship or struggle to survive. It feels like it's your drive as a parent to make sure that your children are really comfortable. But I think there is and in honesty, I do know several people who have been dealt very good cards in terms of the privilege that they were given when they were born, but there is a responsibility that comes with that. And I, I think you don't demonize wealth itself. It's just, it amplifies who you truly are as a person. It's a magnifying glass, isn't it? So if your family values, okay, there's just a lot of things we can get into this, but if your family values just aren't there, then it can just highlight any toxic values that you might have.
But what if you are a Nepo baby and you didn't want to be born into this privilege, like, and now that's your responsibility to have to you now have like all this responsibility on you because of that privilege, which you never, I should say, you never asked for. Like, what do you do in that sort of situation if now, if you were born into that and now you've been born into responsibility without asking for it? Why you can't live a normal life like other people? So then you are put in the spotlight forever.
Well, I think there's probably a lot of people we don't know about that aren't in the spotlight, or they don't they choose not to share, or they keep themselves pretty private. But I think in this instance, it's the shamelessness of, your country's underwater and yet you've bought like 5 supercars. It's kind of
I
a
think
slap
that's
in the face.
it's the difference, isn't it? Because for a while, the Philippines has been under a lot of corruption, and I think it depends on the context of where you flaunt your money when there has been ongoing problems with poverty, and then you flaunt your money in that sort of scenario where if you did it elsewhere where you're flaunting that surrounded by other people with wealth, it wouldn't be taken the wrong way.
Mm.
But there's nothing wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with wealth. There's nothing wrong with wealth. And I do think people should be jealous of people having more
No.
because we have had a conversation before where money has come from somewhere, and whether or not you earned it or your parents earned it, that was hard work. That hard work made the money from
Or
somewhere
smart work. But yeah, it
or
was
smart.
effort to figure out how to do it in a smart way. Yeah.
Exactly. So we shouldn't be jealous of anyone who have strived for more. But the issue here in this scenario is that people are assuming, because I don't know if it's true, are assuming that the parents of these Nepo babies have given them so much money to be flaunting all of this wealth on social media, which has rattled up the country.
Yeah. I think we could do you remember that show, what they called? Crazy Rich Asians?
Yeah,
And we used to watch
love it.
it, and there'd be these, like, I'm just talking, like, there's lots of shows like this. Or there's the film, but there was also the reality show. And there'd be kids on there who are just living these very luxurious lives. But then there'd be some of them who actually would turn it into some kind of a business. Like they would use their position to to become an entrepreneur and make something out of what they've been like the position they've been given. Not that they even had to, but it makes them independent, and not just take for granted what they've been given and turn it into something. It's like the buck doesn't end with them, you know? You could either say this about, Paris Hilton or Kim Kardashian. They they came from, like, their parents had property portfolios and did very well with their own businesses, but in their own right, they've made their own ventures and have been really successful at it. Um, but there'll still be people, and they probably donate very heavily, more than any average person could, to things that they care about.
Would you say that the entitlement of that would come from not using, like when children that are born into privilege don't use or don't learn the skills to be able to continue passing on that wealth down through the generations, and also and because they have more power, the entitlement goes when they are actually doing more for society. I'm trying to play devil's advocate here because they were, it's not their fault that they were born into privilege. So why does the rest of society um want those people to do so much more?
I think if you are in that position and you're gonna display yourself online, like most people do,
Yeah.
most people have a social media account, but maybe if you're in that position and it's not clear what you're adding
Yeah.
to society, it's like, where's the contribution? It doesn't even have to be like you need to give all your money away or all your possessions away. It's like, are you adding even entertainment back to society? Are you adding some kind of value back?
What I could add to that
You know?
as a devil's advocate again is, oh, well, what if they thought that they were adding by flaunting all this stuff online, they thought they were being inspiring as influencers, like old school influencers of inspiring people to want more, but then it comes from a very materialistic for the average person, not really as achievable, but it gives them some hope, I guess, that they can also have the same thing. But then is that actually helpful? Like you said, because what are you really giving except for, to me, I would say flaunting that kind of stuff and only that, like materialistically, why? Because that's not my value, is accumulating a lot of material things. So to me, I would see that as you're just showing, but then why didn't you show more of what you do for society than just showing the handbag?
Yeah. And also, is it their duty to make sure they please everybody? There's that too. Like, why must they? He's gonna hate anyway. Like, they could just think like that, and they probably will, like, regardless of how, like, the good you do. If you look like, you're able to afford certain luxuries in life, it's not, like, your fault. Why not? You live once.
Yeah.
I feel like we're suddenly very much on the Nepo side, but I think the
I know, I'm
context
just
of the
trying to
situation
think.
is it is hard to deny what's going on. And I think if you are somebody a listener, if you're watching this or listening to this, and you're somebody who's thinking about building wealth, I guess what this really is about is, if you were going to have children and you were planning on passing them, um, significant amount of wealth, or maybe you're even somebody who has been dealt very good cards, and your family has set you up to be extremely comfortable. Um, I guess this is just food for thought. How, if you're going to have kids, how are you going to, or if you have them, how are you going to instill some values with them, um, so that, because the problem is entitlement, really.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think a lot of what we're saying is we're just projecting assumptions, and a lot of, like, it's like we're tarring so many people with the same brush, and I don't think that's fair. Um,
Because you
but
don't know
I
if
mean,
they are for that money and then have learnt those kind of lessons from their parents.
yeah.
But in this
They might actually be really
situation,
good business people. They might have got great money lessons from them. They might be donating a lot. They're just not yelling about it, because if they do donate and they tell people about it, other people might just be like, "Ugh, they're just like showing that off now," you know?
but then in the situation with what's happened with the Philippines, there have been a few of these Napo babies who have deleted their social media accounts. So then that's kind of
Mm,
sus. That's like,
it's kind
okay,
of a
so
sign.
what are you using your page for? Just to flaunt? To me, that's a sign that you're just flaunting and being like, look at me. If you're but if you know that you're not, and people are still sending hate, that thing will pass eventually. But if you are then reverting and hide and deleting your social media accounts, to me, obviously this is assumption, but to me that shows that something is dodgy because you're now deleting it, trying to delete all trace.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's also devil's advocate again. It's also like, it's not your, like, if
If
it
no one
doesn't,
lives,
yeah, like, if you don't have to be on the receiving end of a line of fire, then
yeah.
why would you
But
bother
in this
keeping
case,
it?
it is people's business. Like, I can see why people are angry because in this case, with the government officials stealing money, it was from the taxpayers' money, a lot of money. But I guess you can say in another case with Nepo babies, when it's not anything to do with stealing the money from hardworking people, that raising children in this way with privilege without the values is what creates the spoilt adults with just expensive toys. And that's what people then judge.
Mm. So I think the term nepo baby as well is quite a vast um, term because you could be somebody born into privilege, whether it's money, but then again, on a sort of global perspective, you could be somebody who was just born in the right place with the right
Mm,
passport, earning in a different currency that performs better than the one that you're living in. For example, you and I right now. Um,
do you basically say expats? So
yeah,
people don't know
yeah,
that term.
yeah. So you could be like a local nepo baby, localized nepo baby, a globalized nepo baby, just due to circumstance. Um, but the advantage is obviously it opens doors. So if you are an expat or even like someone who does very well and lives in London, you get access to better schools. Your networks are better. Your financial security is just you don't have to worry about it. But the con is also it creates entitlement. You're disconnected. Um, fragility. Yeah, it's uh it's double edged, but I think maybe that's just like that's just the nature of life. Every yin has a yang. Um, we're all just here trying to be better people and figuring it out. I feel like I'm showing a lot of empathy, but I think people just like because there's fewer people in that position. I just feel like you can't just demonize, and a lot of it, and a lot of things we hear about, nepo babies is envy, and like a lot of people just wish they could give that to their children.
Yeah, and people project what they're angry about on people who are in the spotlight. Um I have nothing against people being wealthy, and I have no jealousy towards I don't have any jealousy towards anyone who has more than me. Like, good for them. You just try and think, oh, someone worked hard and created that. Hopefully not from corruption. Ha! Like, then that's obviously not great. But if it wasn't from a corruption standpoint and people in the family work really hard to make sure that they can give the best for their children, why should I be jealous about that? Good for them. Like, good for them to strive for more if that type of wealth is the wealth that they want. But I think it's important to always have values that care about not just your own circles, but also thinking about other people who may not have those same advantages, and keeping your children not in a bubble of only, of course, you want your children to have the best in life as much as you can, but you can't keep them, I don't, can't keep them in a bubble and not, and be naive to what happens in the rest of the world. You need to be able to see all walks of life, and then it makes your children more grateful for the privileges that they have. If you don't expose them to poverty or anything that's going on in the world and they just sit in a little echo chamber, then how are they supposed to practice gratitude for everything that they have?
Yeah, I think it is isolating, isn't it? I mean, um, I wouldn't say, I would say comparatively to the rest of the entire world, we had a privileged upbringing, and we one of the things we did go through was go to private school, and the advantage of that was our baseline for our standard of life was set because we didn't know any different. Our exposure was like to mostly to going around to our friends' houses whose parents were doctors or lawyers or just had a good job and had a nice house and lived in a nice neighborhood. And I think it's not the education that comes from that setup necessarily. It's your network of people that you're in touch with. But on the flip side, we'd go to I'm not this go to the Philippines, for example, and just going through parts of Manila, you'd see poverty.
And in the
Or
province and in the province,
yeah,
and mum would get us to go and show us all different walks of life, and that's something that I'm really grateful for, that we got to witness and experience all the
mm,
different levels
yeah. I remember
of.
going in the shop and getting juice for the kids that were begging outside. Um, Hey guys, if you're new to property investing, we know exactly how hard it is to figure out where to start.
That's why we created the Beginner's Roadmap. It's your guide to mastering the fundamentals so that you can move forward with clarity and confidence. Just hit the link in the show notes. Now, let's jump back into this episode.
and of course, like, you still get poverty in the UK, and you drive past underprivileged areas of the UK, but it's just I'm really glad that we had exposures to both worlds. Um, and we weren't entirely disconnected, or I like to think anyway that we are not disconnected from different walks of life. Um, but then again, like, if you are an expat, for example, um, or a global citizen, your kids get access to multiple languages, different cultural awareness perspectives, um, access to better schools. But then those better schools, like the international schools in, say, Bali or Phuket, cost more than what a local would earn. So it's still like inequality on display by living that lifestyle. It's just, you can't please everybody. You can't.
You
Like, should we
please it.
just have a big communist society? Like, no one work hard.
No. But I think the issue here is if you don't, if no one is accountable for actions like going to what happened has happened in the Philippines with the corruption, with the controls of the ghost projects, where the billions were signed off, then what happens is that when privilege doesn't get checked and there's no accountability, then wealth turns into corruption and people drown. And that's yeah, literally when people, and then Nepo baby culture just exasperates and makes it worse and continues that cycle if your privilege doesn't get checked. I think with anyone, everyone's got their own version of privilege where other people will look at and say, you have more than me. That is just life. That's nature. Someone will always have more than you. But I'm going to devil's advocate again, but like, your privilege, I think it's not unfair. Actually, not devil's advocate. If your privilege is harming other people, I think it's fair for others who may have less to check that your privilege is not turning into corruption and collapsing the economy. But you can have privilege, because that turns into entitlement, but you can have privilege where it doesn't hurt other people. So there's
Yeah,
there's two types of privilege. One where
yeah.
it actually does more damage because you've been unchecked, and then
Mm,
there's privilege where you're not harming anyone, but you just have this,
no.
you're doing more with that privilege. And
Yeah.
you clear that you don't need to check that so much because that person's already do that. The whole point of life, isn't it? Is to not just serve yourself, is to, well, yes, fill your cup, but also we are an ecosystem and we're here to help each other. If your privilege is just about you, then you're not participating into the ecosystem.
Mm,
I don't know. That's
yeah.
just what I think. But then
I
there's also
agree.
in my going, but why should we yes, we should care when it comes to we should care when it comes to corruption, but why should we care so much when someone has more than us? I don't know, it's
I
really
think
hard.
it's charged by that. I think the situation is, is charged by envy as well. There's, like, always a layer of that. So, like, say you are the person who's, um, got your privilege and it came from a, non-destructive place, like a genuinely like, our exist okay, this is getting really deep, but our existence alone is harmful, but obviously, like, not as harmful as, like, literally stealing, like, money from people, um, and letting them drown. Um, you still won't please everybody because that will always be charged with envy, you know, regardless. I think I told you about, a different YouTube video that I saw. I think it was with Jubilee, and there was a billionaire, and he sat in front of a panel of, regular citizens from the States, and you could just feel the daggers going in on this guy. But he built his business from what I understand. There was, nothing corrupt about what he was doing. He was just genuinely very successful and very fortunate that it panned out to be that level of success with his business. 'Cause I remember them asking him being, like, how did you get so successful?" And he was like, "It just, like, spiraled." And he was just very lucky. Obviously, there's hard work that goes into that, but to get to that level of success, it's really, like, hard to kind of plan for. Um, but Eve and they would, say to him, "What's stopping you from giving money to everybody in this room right now?" And he was saying, like, "I do give money to people where I go, where I think they need it." Um, and basically just showed that he was giving multi-millions back, which is more than any individual or collectively that group of the people behind him could have given. Um, yeah, that's my point. My point is, even though he seemed to have come from a genuine, um built himself up genuinely, there was still gonna be jealousy there. So if you've done something bad, then the envy that is always gonna be there. It's just gonna be so much more charged. Um, and yeah, it gets really nasty. It, like, magnifies it more.
And people only it's natural for people to only want to look at the negative. Be like, even if you do so much good and you actually donate so much money, the media likes to always highlight all the negatives that you do. But if you do not wealth, I think people should aspire to have more wealth so that they can help more people. But that never gets highlighted. It's always about like all the greedy person. But if you look at all of these businesses that provide jobs for people, like there wouldn't be jobs for people at all if someone didn't decide, oh, I'm going to grow that business. I'm going to put my neck on the line to do that so that I can make jobs for everyone and give back to the ecosystem. But people see that as, oh, the boss is like the most terrible
Oh, that
thing.
damn CEO, and it's like, "Well, CEO started it somehow," or, like, bought it
Yeah.
somehow so you could have a job today.
And
Um
unfortunately, like in the Western world anyway, there are systems that you have to follow with the laws that may not be very fair, but it's the only way to be able to grow, to make sure that you can provide jobs for people. But
Mm.
it feels like there is no I mean a lot of people they find that like having a job is the most secure thing, but that secure job came from a lot of the person at the
Someone
top,
else's.
then
Mm.
hired multiple people to help with that cost money to then be able to create that job and do all the legal work that allows you to have that safe pension, unlike all of these other business perks. Like, so, it's like, where do you think all that effort came from to make sure that you had the security? I
Mm.
mean, this is a tangent, but I'm just saying that it is tricky. I don't believe,
It's not all
of
from a
course,
bad
that
place. Yeah.
yeah, it's not all from bad page. People start or they create things because they want to do good. People, people Just joke people. You get bad and good people, and it's bad people that turn good ideas into terrible things because they abuse. They abuse the idea, you know?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
AI. Oh, AI is great and like it does so many like wonderful things, and then people decided to abuse it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's people are the problem,
Yeah,
not the
people
inanimate
are the
thing.
problem. No. I don't think Nepo
Yeah.
babies are the problem. I personally
No.
don't. It's how you raise
Well,
them and raise
yeah, I was
them
gonna say
without
the
giving a
yeah.
crap about people.
Yeah. Yeah. Wealth isn't the enemy. It's the problem is raising people with grounding and passing down wisdom as well as money.
I just also think about what if these Nepo babies didn't have knew anything that was happening with their parents and their parents were the corrupt ones. They've now got to live under that shadow of that reputation of their parents that did all that and they were unaware. I don't think like some of them were not aware. I think some of them did, but there might have been some that just living their own life, running their own businesses, thinking that like they're making a path for themselves. Yes, maybe under the parents' wing, but their parents are the corrupt ones. What then? That's
Yeah.
ruining
What
their
if they don't
reputation.
agree? Yeah.
Yeah?
They just
What if they're
happen to be
actually
under the
trying to
shadow. Mm.
like isn't there um uh Trump, his daughter was like doing stuff for like women's rights? Correct me if I'm wrong. But I can't remember which boards that were doing stuff for women's rights, but then he became president and then everyone just was bashing her, though she did a lot of charitable work for women. But because
Yeah.
Trump
Same
has a terrible
family.
reputation with women, they were
Oh,
like,
yeah. That doesn't make
like, poor
sense.
her
Mm.
to have to deal with that. Like, that's her dad. It's not her. She's just linked to him. And she was trying to do something to help women, but she's always going to be tarnished, her reputation, because of her father, because of his um misogynistic way he is with women. So yeah, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, but I think there's always two sides to a coin, and I think you should never. But sometimes I'm like, shouldn't we just all have just one opinion and just follow through with being angry at someone then? But I just think there are so many layers to life, and seasonally we've moved through so many seasons. We're allowed to change our mind about people. That
Yeah.
was a rant.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're a trust fund kid in the UK or a politician's kid in the US or the Philippines. But yeah, without responsibility or just being a decent person breeds corruption, resentment, and then maybe you have to shut your Instagram down. Um, but yeah, it's I think it's the price you pay, isn't it? Like I already said, yin and yang. If you are in that position, you put yourself in the spotlight, or you just become known because you just do. Um, there is a pressure that I think it's a circle where other people don't understand because there's very few people in the world who live at that level of privilege. But there's a pressure to you always feel like you're never enough because it was incredible that your like parents got to achieve what they achieved, but it's like next to impossible for any other individual to do that by themselves. So the kids, you always hear this about like celebrities, children, just always being in the wing, or like a relative, um, like who is a big, yeah, celebrity, and then you're constantly compared to them, or never seen as enough, or judged as inherently lazy because you just were given everything.
That's like
And
treating them on a human level as well, not just
mm,
but for what their status is.
yeah,
You're treating them as a human, and humans. You can say, oh, when people win money with from like the lottery, for example, and then they like don't know how to spend it, and like they have feelings too, and then you get like people who don't have much money start like slagging them off, being like, "Oh,
yeah.
boo, in my mansion." It's like
I hate
they're also
that. That's so
as
yeah.
that's so cool. Like I'm not living in a mansion, but like I just think I would never. poo-poo someone's feelings because who was it that I think I've heard this from is like a psychology thing where someone could be crying about breaking their handbag and it would be the same exact emotion as like someone crying about their cat dying. But it doesn't mean that both feelings aren't valid just because it's perception of what you think is like the worst.
Before we continue, here's a quick thought. Ever feel like there's just never enough time to focus on what really matters in your business?
You don't have to do it all alone. As they say, a great team makes everything easier. That's why we've partnered with the Freedom Geek. Their talented Filipino VAs help us with tasks like admin and podcast editing, just like for this episode, giving us the freedom to focus on what really moves the needle.
If you're looking to reclaim your time and to work smarter, then check out the Freedom Geek. All the details are in the show notes. Now let's get back to our conversation.
I mean, I think the cat one's worse because that's a living creature.
Terrible, but I'm feeling inside your brain for
I've
those
just been
two
sad about something. Yeah.
are like the same amount of sadness, but they're just
Yeah, no, I don't agree with that actually. I think you should be more sad about the cat than a bag.
No, but I'm saying like it's still sad. Like it's still like don't invalidate that two people can be sad about two different things. It doesn't mean one. We should like own.
Or just
we
because
should
you're like just because you're privileged and you've got all the things and you've got all the bags and the house, whatever, the mansion, doesn't mean you're never allowed to not feel sad.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, like you still feel sad. You can cry in your mansion, and when you're crying, you're still sad. Like it doesn't matter if you're in a mansion or not.
That, like your feelings are less like because then I think that breeds when someone has stuff and you go, but I should be grateful, but why am I sad? And then
Do you know what's really interesting? There's a regular place I go to here that is run by a cute little family business, and we pay them like £1 for our lunch every day. And every time we go and we say, "How are you?" Do you know what they say? And I know that they've been like they cook all day and night and work behind the store all day and night at the whole family. They say, "Oh, I'm amazing. I'm having a great day." They're always so positive. But they have hard times too. I just feel like you can be sad or you can be extremely happy regardless of the context of your privilege. And you're allowed to feel both. Yeah. There's this constant pressure to like feel like prove yourself, or maybe in this instance that we're talking about, like feel at like life is perfect and you have no emotions, which is also really toxic. Because if any of those I kind of hate how we're appearing like we're on the side of Nepo babies, but I swear this episode just feels like a big devil's advocate thing about like let's consider the other side. Let's consider if you were going to give your children or you were a person in this position, like have a little empathy for a situation that most people aren't in.
But also
but those,
this disclaimer though, because of if that money didn't come from corruption.
yeah,
I'm not that.
No. But I think it would be rare and it would be interesting, actually, if any of those kids decided to say something and hear their side of the story. Like, did they know about it?
I would love to know. Yeah.
Probably. Like, are you stupid? Like,
yeah. Well, wasn't one of them, their husbands set up a company that was to do with like the flood risk. So it is like I think they did know, but then they're now like hiding away. So like at least one child knew about taking the money.
Yeah, it would be interesting to hear more Nepo babies' opinions and experiences. I know it's really hard to talk about it because it's just such an easy line of target. Like you're just such an easy target, and like it's all quite a security thing. I think probably as well
it stops everyone putting like celebrities or people in the limelight like they're God and like they don't have any emotions or feelings, like they're like superior. Maybe if we stop like putting people on pedestals and then comparing ourselves to them, that's just the issue, isn't it? And you wouldn't like think no one like ever had a hard time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in closing, privilege has no passport. Whether you are abroad or at home, the only real question is, for us anyway, are you raising bridge builders or bubble dwellers? Yeah, privilege isn't the villain. Having entitlement is. And I know we bang on about this word, but it's our favorite word, alignment. Means being a person or raising children that has gratitude, responsibility, and contribution. And hopefully, ideally, no corruption. Yeah. But, this inspired this episode. I think it was an interesting one to talk about because, yeah, I mean, nobody really discusses the humanity on the other side. I feel like that's what we've done a lot of in this discussion. But yeah, let us know your thoughts. Leave a comment or DM us. Yeah, we'd like to know what you think. What would you do if you were going to give your kids you've grown your aligned wealth and you want to make sure your kids are set up for the future, and you're going to pass on a significant amount of wealth, or you are one of those recipients. How was that handled in a way that you liked or disliked? Or yeah, what would you plan to do if it was you passing it down? We would love to know. Yeah. Honestly, what would you do now? Because you are actually a mother. How would you treat your son
I think
when
we
giving
talked about
him?
this. We've
Mm,
talked about this, and it would be I wouldn't hand money down. I would You mentioned this before, that we would do what Will Smith would do, what he does, which is, "Mummy and daddy are rich, you're poor, so you need to" like, this is like, "You're living in our life, but you need to work. You need to work your way, like, if you wanna borrow money, I'll give you can return it with interest." Or, like, "Show me you said this as well, it's like pitch to me." I mean, you pitched to mum and dad when you wanted to get your nose pierced. So, like, it would be it always makes me laugh. But like, because that shows skill. That's building skill and show like and not just handing money down without without learning negotiation skills, without learning how to like think more than just I want this.
yeah, I think it removes the entitlement. You know what? Just to I want to find that show. Actually, it was a long time ago, but it was another Crazy Rich Asian. It wasn't like a reality show. It was, I guess it kind of was, but it was showing the difference between how different kids. It was a Nepo baby show. How the different kids are raised. There were some staggeringly wealthy kids in the Middle East, and this guy was extremely entitled. Extremely entitled. Anything he wanted, he just got like that. And you could feel kind of the ickiness in his values as a person. Contrastly, there was another Nepo baby who was more wealthy in Thailand, and her family owns the mega malls and like the big hotels, but they don't they didn't live in a big mansion. They lived in like the top floor of one of the hotels. Yeah, like the penthouse. And the daughter would get very like not a crazy amount of pocket money every month, only if she did well at school, and she would have to budget it if she wanted to hang out with her friends or go shopping in the malls her family owns, which I just thought was hilarious. But she was so much more humble and also made sure that she donated that money or like paid for her friends. And if she wanted a new phone, she'd have to save up for it. So I think there's just like a difference in family
It's
values, but I
teaching your
feel like
children responsibility, isn't it? How to use that money
exactly,
responsibly,
yeah,
not waste
to the
family money. Well, 'cause if your parents decided to give you money later, they know that you can be responsible with that money that they give to you. You've got to prove yourself.
yeah. Yeah, and actually to the point that if she wanted to use the gym in the building, if there were guests using it, she wasn't allowed to go in there. She'd have to wait for them to finish because they're the paying guests.
Yeah.
But they would still go on fabulous family holidays. Like they weren't just they weren't depriving themselves at all. I just really appreciated their approach. Teach like because she was living in their world. She's still under 18, but she would get herself jobs. Like obviously she's relatively known, so she'd use that to her advantage and book modeling jobs and use her face for work because that's an asset that she has. But yeah, I there is a great way to do it so you don't raise entitled people.
That are that are unfulfilled with their life.
Yeah, I think that also makes you surrounded by icky people and then you just probably feel crap inside and you, happiness isn't sustainable then. Whereas if you create somebody who's got values and isn't entitled, they're more likely to form and like this is one big thing about happiness is having genuine relationships, like people who care about you because you care about other people and you're not acting entitled. It's an energy that anybody can read. Yeah, that's my closing food for thought. um, yeah. But yeah, let us know your thoughts if you're listening or watching this. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with somebody who needs to hear the real side of wealth building. Or if this is a topic that they're interested in having more conversation about. And thank you so much for listening to the Honest Property Podcast, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.